Hello everybody, Mike Brailsford, Brailsford Woodworks. Thank you for joining me back on my channel. Today I'm going to make myself a segmented gluing jig. And I'm getting started by getting all my wood dimensioned. I'm cutting it down into the rough length that I need. And from there, I'll move on to cutting it down, ripping it down on the table saw. I recently purchased 6 sliding doors for installation around my patio. And I built a deck to go out on there, and all of this wood was packing material for around the sliding glass doors, and it's all good southern yellow pine. And I've done stuff like this before where I've taken this wood and used it for bench tops and things like that, but I figured it's all free, I'm gonna make good use of it. So here I am again. I'm ripping it down on the table saw, and from there I will plane it and we'll get it glued up. Here I am running it through my planer, and from there I'm taking it over to my gluing jig and getting it all glued up. I've said this before, but I use Titebond 3 exclusively. I find it really is a great glue. I use it if it's interior, exterior, I really don't care, but I think this stuff works well, and I like using it. I always put on a fairly liberal coat. I think it helps bond better, and with the squeeze out, that's all okay. I can clean that up, no problem, but I think the bond is better when you make sure you have enough glue in your joints. I'm squaring things up, and I'm using my pipe clamps to get it all socked down. After I removed clamps, I run it through my drum sander, get it nice and flat, and that prepares me to move on to the next step. So on this jig, I'm going to use a 1/2-inch threaded rod, and right now I'm finding my center, and from there I will drill in a 1/2-inch hole, and that's where my rod will end up mounting. So on this jig, I decided I wanted to add some T-track, and that will help me hold the glued up segmented rings in place, especially the bottom one, which is the base one that you need to make sure everything else is nice and straight from that point. So right now I'm routing out my groove to install my T-tracks. So my board is 24 by 24, and I measured corner to corner, drew a line, and from that line I came out 3 inches to mount my fence. That allowed me to route in perpendicular grooves so that I could mount my T-track in. From that point I was able to use my circle drawing jig that I use for my bowl blanks and draw out a nice 24-inch round circle on my board. Now I'm taking it over to my bandsaw and cutting off all the waste. So putting it on the lathe allowed me to get it nice and round. At this point, I'm marking out my reference grooves where I'm going to cut in a little teeny groove every 1/2 inch from the center all the way out to the rim. So I'm using my Easy Wood Tools Pro detail tool, and I'm going in on each one of these marks and cutting in a little groove. I will also at that point also take out my parting tool, my flat parting tool, and enhance the hole just that much more. So here I'm timed to mount the T-track. I put in a little CA glue. I'm gluing them in, and I'm also screwing them. I'm taking out 4 T-track knobs. They've got a 1/4 screw, which fits into the T-track slot. I'm using 4 segmented wedges where I had found the center and drilled them out, and I'm using those as my stops when I start gluing up rings. Now it's time to mount the 1/2-inch piece of threaded rod. I'm putting it in through the top. I put in a nice big 2-inch fender washer on the top and on the bottom. You can see I'm applying my fender washer there and then putting on the nut. I'll then sock it down with a couple wrenches and this thing will be done. It's time to test it out. I'm going to test it out by gluing up a top for a birdhouse. I've got some rings already pre-made. I use the grooves that I routed into the base to center the bottom ring, and then I will block it in, hold it in place with the stops. From that point on, it's business as usual. Apply the rings on top, where I apply some glue, put it on, make my measurements, make sure it's straight to the bottom ring. From that point, I will drop on a piece of 3/4 inch electrical conduit over the top of the rod, and I will bolt it down from the top, which will apply pressure onto the whole stack of rings, and that will be done. Decided to add some rubber feet, thought it would make it easier to use, add a little cushion. So this project is done. I'd like to make you all aware that I've started a new channel called Brailsford Woodworks Refinished. It is more condensed versions of my videos. I would appreciate it so much if you all could go over and take a look at the new channel, and please subscribe to it. So that's it for today. Thank you all for joining me so much. Bye-bye.